Chain hacks teeth tearing through the barred synthwave door of injustice.
Here's Johnny.
We are the unhinged Vox drama writers of rebellion, here to ensure it's not all work and no play. 665.66 UHMR Chemrat Radio, coming to you live tonight from Bulge's Sumprack City. If you can't wear a synth leather bodysuit, what can you wear?
I've heard that a good silicone-based lubricant really makes it so that you can keep that bodysuit, nice and weatherproof. You have to treat that stuff.
I've always sworn by cornstarch myself.
It's corn powder. It gets it anyway. Corn flour.
Yeah,
cornstarch.
I'm a simple man. Good old fashioned Vaseline.
Slide right
Solve
on in.
Many problems. Yeah.
Hopefully, Gobbo, everyone is packing their Hazardous Environment 3 rebreathers this week as choking fog has been reported across multiple districts. With Administratum planning rolling power outages all week, conditions will only worsen as the air scrubbers and exchange relays struggle to keep up with the extra loads. Sounds like someone dropped a wrench into the thermal core sinks again.
I'll be pissed if the Cog Boys fucked up enough to push back the first games of the Murder Ball season. It's a real bitch when blood starts raining from the vent systems.
Tell me about it. Do you know how long it takes to get the blood stains out of the splash zone seats each season? I'm an artist with a plasma steamer. People got to see my work.
My co-hostess with the mostest, the siren of Hangar AR-18, the death synth priestess herself, Emmy.
That's right, Gobbo. Ghosts Have No Morals merch is officially out. Legit, guys. Go check our Redbubble. The shirts and the stickers look so good. So, very excited. Now you can actually buy my merch.
Always poring over the data stacks, hunting down juicy tidbits to score us even more archaeotech, it's Chac.
Hey guys, I've been slicing black ice and trying to find us all the juiciest tidbits to bring up on the show.
Rivaling the skills it took to paint the ceiling of St. Celestine's Chapel, the underappreciated in the skills of blunt stain removal, Drew.
Look, guys, I'm really, really worried. We're hearing right now that the Lords of Terra are discussing whether or not they're going to ban the musical cogitator net. And I don't know, but if I can't see my favorite rendering of my favorite scenes from the Battle of Horus in, just in the fun 3-minute snippets with the voiceover and the dances, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really hope the Lords of Terra got our backs on this one and know that that's what the people want.
It's just it's the machine spirit reading the lore to you. And as always, I am your friendly Habstack Plasma Fiend, Goblin King.
Look, they're trying to tell us that the Tau have infiltrated the Cognet. I don't think that's possible, man. I don't think that's possible.
Welcome to episode 138 of Sinners and Saints Part 2. We got a handful of personalities to go over today, but before we jump into that, do you want to watch us do all the crazy insanity that is the podcast? You can do that by heading on over to patreon.com/underthehive of madness right now and sign up to see our beautiful faces as you support the show. You also get some exclusive extra podcast content. There's a whole other hour of content, folks. And at this point, we have released like 38 exclusive content episodes. Plus, if you go back before that, you'll just get like 4-hour-long episodes. I don't know how you want it. Do you want the extra episode, which is easier to digest, or do you want to watch 4 hours of us? It's up to you. But there are hundreds of hours of extra content. So if that's your thing and you're looking for it, head on over there now. More on that a bit later.
God, the level of detail we got into with the damn Tyranids.
It's a Tyranid episode. You always get back. It's all of them, though. Like
it's juicy.
No, like, remember the 4-part
is 6 episodes long. And that's only part of it because the uncut episodes, like with the Patreon exclusive stuff that's tacked on, those are like 6 3-hour episodes.
My God.
It's ridiculous. I mean, but the Astra Militarum is pretty big. It makes sense. It's probably one of the bigger factions. It's like talking about the Space Marines. Like, how do you talk about the Space Marines in 3 episodes? You don't. You talk about the heresy for 29 episodes, and then you cover the Space Marines later, and then you do each of the Legion. There's just a lot of lore. There's what, not quite 50, 44 years of lore in the game at this point.
Mhm.
And if you look at it by the number of writers they have, it's probably, it's that old trick that Mythbusters used to do, where they'd be like, between the two of us, we have over 70 years experience. Between all of the writers in 40K, there's a lot of years of lore.
What year are you counting as what you say? Are you saying 81?
78.
78. Okay.
78, 79.
Okay. So like I was born in 1981. I am 44 years old. So
we're talking like 46, 45, 46 years of lore.
So like, longer than I've been alive. And I feel like that's like way too long. So
it's a lot of lore. It's not as much lore as like, say, Star Wars. That's probably got it beat by like 6 months, but
I'm like expired spam, It's incredible.
I know.
Though.
I feel the same way with Magic the Gathering. Like, I was born 2 years before Magic the Gathering started, and it feels like everyone else was alive at the time and really got that.
I was playing Magic when you were born.
Oh no! Oh no!
Well, Magic came out in 1991 or 1993. 93, 94, depending.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I was a few years out of college at that point.
Yeah. And I was playing 3 years after that. So in around 96, 97.
This might be a regional thing, but I remember playing Magic earlier than 93, but I was also living in Washington State.
The first places that were really getting it were the Midwest, and it would be early 93, I think would be perhaps the earliest. It debuted in at Gen Con in Minnesota, I believe, at the time.
I mean, like I lived in a test bed community for like the company.
Yeah.
So maybe it was 93, 94. But anyway, everybody up there fucking played. Like as soon as it was big. Well, as soon as it was big, it was not. But what Magic is today is fucking big. But when Magic became the like thing that more than 5 people were doing, everybody in Washington State was playing, especially at a certain age. Speaking of, I saw a short today of a guy opening a pack of Revised that was $399. It was an unopened pack of Revised.
Yeah, that's about what that would cost. Yeah.
I had so many of those when I was like 12, 13 back in 93, 94. Like I just remember opening pack after pack after pack after pack. You could get a pack of Revised for 79 cents. You could get 2 packs if you went to the right place. You could get 2 packs of not Forgotten Realms, Forgotten Empires,
Fallen Empires,
Fire
Empires, which was the first 4 sets kind of mashed together in a random order, right?
That's Chronicles.
That's Chronicles.
It's Chronicles. Anyway, you could get, if you were really lucky, you could find a guy who would sell you 2 packs of Chronicles for 98 cents, and then you could get Fallen Empires for $1.
Fallen Empires is objectively worse.
Oh, I know, but it was one of my favorite sets at the time. I don't know why, but I mean, again, at the time there were like 5 sets out. Like,
it was the darkest of all of them. I think. Beyond the dark and so on, but
the dark. But like, that's the thing is now Revised can go for like upwards. Like $399 is like a median price for a pack.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Fallen Empires is still about $8. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's like one of the worst. It's like considered to this day still.
And it was
to
also
this day, like it's still not a good set, and it's regarded as one of the worst ever.
As well.
Yeah,
like it was like really, really, really overprinted.
They also tossed them into like when they used to do the sealed pack Wizard. Like, you guys remember Wizard magazine? And the trading card, like back when there were trading card magazines, they used to like toss them into packs of those. So you would like get that. Anyway, yeah, back in the day. Anyway, it was just wild watching this guy open a $399 pack that I remember buying for like less than $1. So back in the day, just blew my mind.
Like, it's because the one big thing, the reason why is because of dual lands. That's the last set that they print dual lands in, and
some of them go up for like $800 or $900. It's insane.
A Revised Underground Sea will go for $1,200 right now, ish, if it's in really good shape.
Absolutely insane. But the dude opened the pack, and as he was going through this really weird story, the really last weird chunk of this story, he's going through the pack and he's pulling out the cards and he's showing how much they're each worth. And he gets to the plague rat card, and the plague rat card is worth like 15 cents or something like ridiculously low.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me when my buddy was on his second tour overseas, we used to send a plague rat card back and forth to each other. So I would write him like a pen pal. I don't even like a letter. That's what they're called. I'd write him a letter and I'd send it to his APO, and I would send the plague rat card to him, and then he would write one back and he'd send it back. And the plague rat is somewhere. I think it's in the back of like one of my con badge sleeves at this point. And he's got one too. It's just like, though, I don't remember why we did it. I know why we did it. There was a television show at the time where the two guys that were writing each other, the villain and the hero, used to send a king from the chess set back and forth to each other.
Oh.
That's why we ended up doing it. We were like, we're going to be dumb. And then, of course, you do it for like a year and it like has weird sentimental value because overseas war zones, blah, 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 blah. But yeah,
Sure.
anyway.
Yeah.
So speaking of following and chronicling wars, right up top, we're going to give you guys a pretty big purity seal warning. While it's true that every episode that we produce has a healthy mix of horror tropes and gore, sometimes we dip a little bit deeper into uncomfortable topics. In the case of today's topic, anxiety and depression are things that a lot of people suffer from. Unrelated to that, a lot of artists, and I can kind of personally speak to this, also suffer from anxiety and fear specifically surrounding our artwork. We have a tendency to feel that it's never done or that it's not done good enough and that we haven't fully expressed our skills. We want to be clear that none of these topics on anxiety or depression should ever be treated as a romantic notion. The tortured artist and the tortured soul and all of that stuff that's really prevalent in modern culture is kind of despicable. And I don't think, I want to put this up front, that any of the authors who wrote the Horus Heresy stuff actually meant to romanticize anxiety or suffering. The artists and the characters that we're about to discuss do go through those things, but they weren't romanticized. And we shouldn't, as creative writers, ever really look to make a character so one-dimensionally linked to trauma. Just as we discussed in the past with the existence to need to be really careful around using the word madness in speculative fiction. Chac and I specifically talked about this when we talked about H.P. Lovecraft, and the four of us have talked about it in other creative writing episodes. The ideas of madness and a lot of the stories that like H.P. Lovecraft and stuff that surrounds this is the Penny Dreadfuls, this is the Pulp Fictions, this is the dime store novel era. This is as the Edwardian era like ideals are dying out. And madness was really just a term that was blanketing over a whole host of mental health symptoms. In fact, to be flippant and funny about it, one of those was women could be mad unless they went to a doctor who would make them come because they weren't allowed to have normal sex with their husbands and orgasm. So like madness is just not, it's a thing to shy away from unless you're doing it mindfully. And the way to kind of do it mindfully is to use it as part of the journey and to use it as part of the impact. And that's both madness and trauma. You can use trauma as a character motivator or as a characterization, I should say. Just don't use it as the character. Never fall back to the fact that like this person is insane, therefore insane things are going to happen to them. This person is a traumatic mess, therefore traumatic things are going to keep happening to them. This person has experienced trauma. It has informed their character. Good. Euphoria, 13 Reasons Why, bad. When it's trauma and depression for trauma and depression and insanity's sake, it gets really, really, really cringy and really bad quickly. And as the creative writers who are kind of coming into working in this space, it's our responsibilities in a lot of ways to avoid falling into the traps that have kind of become exploitative again in the last like 10 years. I mean, like, you know, that joke everybody was saying when 2020 was coming up, they were like, oh, we're going back into the roaring 20s. I don't think anybody meant that, like, oh yeah, the fiction is going to get back into exploiting mental health problems. But what did we get? We got two of the largest shows that exist right now literally exploit trauma and mental health problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one other thing I'd like to add to this before we continue is I think a lot of this conversation and what happens to the characters that we're discussing tonight is a deconstruction from very high control religious, well, we'll get into the nuances there, but a high control religious type of system. And we see individuals using religion or dogmatic beliefs to program people into doing certain actions in the name of that belief system and using those people weaponizing that fervent religious belief to exploit them. And when people start to deconstruct from these systems, when they go, wait a minute, there's an inconsistency here, it can reveal more inconsistencies and cause kind of like an existential breakdown as they experience that crisis of faith because the entire way that this person was raised or socialized to view the world and they believed that this system would ultimately benefit them. They realized that none of these things exist. And yeah, that can cause some, you know, uh, not in the fun, like vibrators and heroin way madness, but
yeah.
there's certain types of emotions and there's certain types of trauma that come with religion and other types of high control organizations. And that's definitely also something that a lot of these remembrancers and other sort of like journalistic individuals capturing the heresy and the Great Crusade, they're definitely experiencing that.
Yeah, it's kind of the later writings or the later half writings of H.P. Lovecraft, and then a lot of the writers that have been inspired by Lovecraft up until the newest, Lovecraft Country being a standout as a newer inspired by. A lot of the focus did at a certain point shift away from madness for madness sake, like, oh, this person is insane, so they're experiencing insane things. And insanity and madness were very much like you existed anywhere on a spectrum of anything, and they would just be like, oh, they're mad. Like that was just kind of a blanket term. But a lot of the stuff that ends up out of the later writings and a lot of the inspired by writings was literally like, I am a very, very small piece and a very, very unknowable system. And I'm realizing it and I cannot connect A to B. I am no longer the main character or the center of the universe. And now everything's falling apart. And that's the thing to play with. I am no longer the main character. I am no longer the center of the universe. And existentialism and existential cosmic dread and all that exists. And I have to deal with it. Is kind of what these characters are going through. There's just a fine line. You gotta and you have to make sure that you walk it right. And there are characters we are talking about today that all kind of deal with these anxiety and depression models, like as Emmy just kind of brought up, a lot of it in reaction to things, systemic things that have happened. So just keep it in mind as we move forward. We haven't purity sealed in a while. I think the last time we purity sealed, we were talking about gene stealers. So
That was quite the episode. Oh my God.
You know you love them.
This space assault.
The space assault, right? tongue punch in the fart box.
Exactly. And space consent is different.
Drew, are you covering your face because of what I said? Did I get you?
Just all of it, man. Just thinking about what that gene stealer, he's getting in your genes and he's stealing and it's not good. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
They're designed to be creepy and get in your skin, and it works for me. I don't know. What can I say?
Yeah,
the same goes for
very,
watching
very creepy monster.
Wrath of Khan. I get queasy. Yeah.
So with all that said, let's look at some of the more infamous remembrancers. Again, we're talking about the sinners. Maybe not so much the saints this time, but we're definitely talking about the sinners. Serena de Angelis was a painter who served the Emperor's Children's Legion in the 28th Expeditionary Fleet. Considered one of the best painters in the Imperium, she joined the Remembrancers because of feelings of artistic stagnation, despite the wide breadth of her success on Terra. She was one of the most famous, most celebrated, most successful painters on Terra, and she thought all of her work was shit. She was prone to self-mutilation in the form of cutting due to her deep-rooted fears that her paintings would be viewed as inadequate and without merit. And that was both in her time and as her time passed. She kind of feared leaving this legacy behind. Like many others that followed the Emperor's children, Serena was exposed to the chaotic taint, literally, of Slaanesh when she visited the surface of the world of Larian. This corruption took root, and she soon began to resort to brutal murders for her chaotically tainted paintings, which used the blood and other bodily fluids of her victims. She discovered on accident, I think she cut herself while she was painting, and she discovered that like the red of the blood was like a perfect color for like depicting the skin of her subjects. So she was like, well, I can't use my own blood because obviously there's a finite amount of it. But you know where there's an infinite amount of blood? The naval ratings and the guardsmen on this ship. So she went harvesting.
An icon.
Ryan,
Yes.
Ryan, you said other bodily fluids.
Oh, yes. No. Poop also specifically, feces also specifically had a poignant color that made browns richer. Yeah, no, it was every bodily fluid, mostly blood, but all of them.
How much jizz was there, right? How much jizz was there in this?
I mean, like if you want to effectively like harvest jizz, you don't murder somebody. You keep them locked in a basement. I think murder.
So now we're talking about
amount
stealing genes. Is that what we're saying?
This is 40K,
Exactly.
so they're not actually going to say that. They're okay with the brown stuff, but there's certain lines that GW doesn't cross usually.
The only faction that group beats off into a vat to grow new people is the Votan. All right. Well, and technically the Space Marines. The progenoid gland is located right next to the prostate. All I'm saying.
Was the meeting in the boardroom something like this? Like, oi, listen here. I told you, no jizz in the 40K books. Is that what happened?
Probably, actually, yeah.
So Serena's storyline very much feels like the classic book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which if you haven't read it, you should go out and read it. Essentially, in The Picture of Dorian Gray, the main character, has a picture of himself that was painted by a very famous author. And anything that happens to Dorian, like aging or getting injured, doesn't happen to him. It happens to his picture. And as long as his picture remains hidden, and nobody except Dorian can gaze upon it, Dorian will not be affected by anything that happened. Essentially, the crux of the story is that people are trying to look at his picture. Yeah. Dorian Gray, I mean, he's one of the, if you're familiar with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he's one of the characters in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He pops up in fiction a lot. Oscar Wilde is the author who wrote about him, but there's very much a lot of Serena and Fulgrim, and the painting of Fulgrim is the picture of Dorian Gray. So she painted a very garish and horrible picture of the likeness of Fulgrim. It was said to be so realistic that it was horrifying. It was horrifying to behold. And this would actually become possessed and house the greater demon of Slaanesh that also inhabited Fulgrim's demon sword, the Laris blade. This was that blade that he had taken from the world of Laren, the Laren blade being the one that he found in Slaanesh's temple when they took over the planet. Later, Fulgrim's soul, not sword, would actually be imprisoned in the painting himself after he had been tricked into allowing the demon to possess his body. So there's a lot of things that happen. And like Fulgrim definitely loses the plot and definitely goes demon himself. But there is a period of time where Fulgrim is literally a prisoner inside of his own body and the demon is driving. And you could make the argument that might still be happening. Like I have made that argument.
I personally still think that is a thing. Because just the way that they kind of like talk about like the apotheosis of Fulgrim, like the moment that the demon takes over.
Yeah.
It's that moment where he's got his sword made by his brother, Ferrus Manus, and he's like standing over Ferrus Manus, like about to stab him. And he's like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I
Yeah, and
cannot
then
stab my brother.
and
And
then
the
the later
demon is
blade
like,
is like-
it's free real estate.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
free real estate.
and then so I believe that there's a little bit of there's a little bit of human Fulgrim that's left in that demonic body for sure.
Yeah. And I think he breaks upon seeing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. It's
I find that this story, the portrait of Dorian Slanesh Gray, that's his middle name. I don't know. It's kind of goofy and like written as like weirdly unbelievable. And it makes
yeah.
the Fulgrim story like less sad for me because I'm like, haha, he went in a painting. Oh no, demon. And it just kind of takes away from like just the tragedy of like him and his obsession with perfection leading him to be possessed by a demon because he can't murder his brother. It's very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that heralds back to the fact that like Oscar Wilde was essentially a comedian. I'm trying to a satirical like comedian author, and I think
Yes.
they definitely. I don't think anybody's outright come out and said anything, but there's a chunk of Fulgrim, the book, the novel, that very much feels like they're making allusions to the picture of Dorian Gray. I mean, like
Absolutely.
it's almost impossible to see how they weren't, whether or not consciously, who knows?
For sure. I don't know. It's just incongruous in tone to me with the rest of it. Just a little
Yeah.
bit because it's just like a
That's
little
fair.
like this is a bit too goofy, too whimsical, guys. Let's get back to the grimdark. So
You got to
anyways.
remember it is space fancy, so sometimes they have to be space fancy about it, like or science fantasy, not space fancy, science fantasy. It's a bit science fantasy, so sometimes they got to be a little fantasy about it.
Yeah, true.
Like all those other corrupted by Slaanesh, Serena was overcome by the need to seek constant stimulation through the pursuit of ever more extreme and perverse experiences. Yet she gradually fought the corruption and came to her senses, seeking out Austin Delafleur, a former lover from before her corruption, for help. However, Austin had already been murdered in his studio by Fulgrim for creating a sculpture of the Emperor that had angered the Primarch. Overcome by her guilt and sadness at the death of the man who had loved her and tried to rescue her from the grips of chaos, Serena committed suicide, impaling herself on the same sword that had taken Austin's life, joining his body on the sword still embedded in the remains of the statue of the Emperor that he, Austin, had so carefully crafted.
So beautiful.
It's very, again, like to allude to something else, it's very Romeo and Juliet. Everybody thinks Romeo and Juliet is this romantic love story. Romeo and Juliet is a 3-day murder spree by two teenagers that were in lust with each other. Like, let's just be clear.
Yeah.
I would say, like, more broadly speaking, though, like the trajectory of a lot of these like chaos stories is that of tragedy.
Yes.
Right. It's and especially like tragic irony. Like they
Yes.
love that stuff, and they really lean into it pretty hard. And by tragedy, I mean not in the I mean in the classical sense, in the traditional like literary sense, and not in the more figurative emotive sense.
Yeah.
You know,
the
like
comedy and tragedy traditionalized story.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So the whole notion that there's a lot of like the thing that undoes the person is the thing of their own doing, or their representative of their worst flaw and so on, right? So like in this case, this is a person who is consumed with I'm going to assume at some point like some their own self-image and so on, right? Like and going into this as an artist, I guess they're so like fixated on capturing real life, and it is the same sort of like seed that a lot of horror stories grow out of, except that those ones tend to just the ends are that much more extreme, right? Like the tragedy is so much that more awful. It's typically like it's not just enough that the character dies; they have to fall into a wood chipper and have their guts splayed out everywhere or something. You know,
And
but again, still like oftentimes horror is that ironic tragedy, right? The person is oftentimes getting their own just desserts or whatever, right? You know, like the the teens having sex, or the person stealing or whatever. Oftentimes the people that seem to be the ones who are the victims of the killer first, and so on.
We often focus on the androgynous aspect of the Keeper of Secrets and Slaanesh demons, but if you actually look at kind of the deeper or the more base representation, it is kind of that same idea, the tragedy and comedy mask,
Yeah.
It's two aspects of the same story, it's two aspects of the same whole. That you had just brought up in one, you made the grimdark comparisons, and then you immediately jumped into like horror already always kind of has an extra story. A fantastic example of what Drew's talking about is Dale and Tucker versus Evil, where literally every single teenager who dies in that movie dies to an accident that Dale and Tucker are actually trying to stop.
Yes.
They are trying to help the entire time. And it's literally just a comedy of errors leads to gruesome, horrible deaths.
Yeah.
Fantastic, fun movie, by the way.
Tyler Labine, fun fact, is my childhood best friend. That was his cousin, and I met him a few times many years ago. Tyler was a fun guy to hang out with when I was like 8 years old. It's been a while. Yeah, this was pre-Breaker High.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So we were chatting about a certain Ostian Delafor. So he was a sculptor who served with the Emperor's Children Legion, also in the 28th Expeditionary Fleet. He was so renowned for his skills on Terra that the Emperor patronized his sculptures himself, and Delafor soon came to the attention of the Primarch Fulgrim. He would run afoul of the composer Becca Kinska, also part of the 28th Expeditionary Fleet, when he refused her attempts at seduction. Human resources. This whole thing could have just an email to the HR lady. This composer lady is trying to fuck me. I feel uncomfortable with her advances. Can we set up a documented discussion? Just a couple of Zoom meetings, and this would have been all wrapped up.
It's just really sad because you make the HR joke, and I'm like, oh, wow, this literally is every art department I've ever worked in.
Oh, God. You're absolutely right. Creatives have a certain way of
trying to stick it into everything.
Yep.
Just don't hold back. The
Yeah.
podcast doesn't have to. They might soon, but the podcast doesn't currently have to report to an HR person.
Just me.
It would be,
right.
if there was going to be someone, it would probably be Emmy first. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he wasn't interested in getting it on with Miss Becca the composer because he was in love with Serena De Angelis. Kinska retaliated by preventing Delafor from traveling to the surface of the world of Laren. And ironically, we already know what happened on Laren. This spared him from the chaotic corruption unleashed on the Legion through exposure to the Temple of Slaanesh in the Laren capital. He would fall from Fulgrim's favor after he critiqued Fulgrim's own attempts at the sculptor's art, finding them so perfectly flawless that they lacked the imperfections that gave great art its soul and character. Wow. Very Fulgrim of him right there.
Fulgrim is the only Primarch that this has ever really explored in. But in this artistic, in the pursuit of arts, essentially, everything Fulgrim tried, he was perfect at. And he was perfect at it. Like, we're kind of dealing with this right now. AI art either has really, really bad hallucinations, or it's so like crisp and good that it loses its inherent artness.
Mm-hmm.
And like everything Fulgrim produced was like that. It was so fucking perfect. It just didn't feel like art. Like there was nothing art about it.
It's the uncanny valley
Yes.
kind of
Mhm.
thing
Yeah.
as well, right? A little bit of that, the notion that like tiny imperfections. That's always the thing, right? Like, and we become so, especially like as people, all of us at some point, we've all studied art in different ways, but like you get taught like what the ideal face looks like, what the ideal body looks like. This is where the muscles are, and so on. You forget that like that's the ideal, and everyone is that, but at least there's a something that's a little different, or there's a defect here. There's a leg that's shorter, an arm that's longer. Like that's what makes people, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. As the Emperor's children fell to the corruption of Slaanesh around him, he remained isolated in his studio, creating an extraordinary statue of the Emperor Mankind that was perhaps his greatest work. When Fulgrim entered the studio and saw the statue, he was deeply angered by the greatness of Delafor's work, which the Primarch could never match, and by the heroic image of the Emperor, which Fulgrim believed had betrayed him and his brothers. Fulgrim slew Delafor by driving his sword through both the statue and the sculptor's body while defacing the statue of the father he intended to betray. He stabbed Delafor with the sword Anatheme. I think
Anathame.
that's Anathame. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how you pronounce that. Which is the same sword Serena self-impaled on later, like a big, kebab of
Kebab of
sadness.
human.
Yeah, it's very like ironic by Alanis Morissette kind of moment.
So,
We don't
so
have
if Fulgrim impaled the sculptor with the sword onto the sculpture of the Emperor, and Serena came on, what'd she do? Like impale herself on the handle of the sword?
She impaled herself. So
Did she
so the,
pull it out and then stab herself through it? I mean, because the point
The
would have been
blade-
in the statue.
the blade was driven through Destin.
Right, through Dustin into the statue. And even if it was through the statue,
Delaforne's-
she like crawl under the
through-
statue and push herself up?
No. So when Fulgrim walked in, Delafor essentially like turned around and revealed the statue. And then as Delafor is gazing in like rapt pleasure or rapt awe
Yeah.
at this image of the Emperor, who the sculpture transcended the Emperor's likeness to a point where like Delafor was ready to genuflect
we
to it.
get all that, but where was the point of the sword?
Hold on. He drove the sword through his back and all the way through the statue.
Right.
And then he took the Laren's sword and he slashed the Emperor's face. And then
Right.
when she came in, she essentially saw him dead and went around to the other side of the statue and dragged herself onto the point from the other side.
Okay. That's
So the
basically
statue's
what
in
I
the
said.
middle.
So she went around to the other side and like humped up onto the sword to drive it through her body.
Yeah, so that the statue becomes the meat in the center of the human sandwich.
Oh,
I think I've seen this movie.
With the cocktail sword all the way through it. It's like two olives with like a piece of it. So what you're looking at is a Bloody Mary, okay?
Is it
So
like a
there's
mad
piece
German
of cheese.
scientist?
There's a piece of cheese, and then there's a pickle, and then there's a piece of ham, okay?
This is
And
upsetting.
oh, this is like when the very hungry caterpillar, when he makes that sandwich that gives him the tummy ache.
I do really like the idea though that she like drove herself onto the hilt. Because like that would be
Oh,
so much
like
more
the
grim.
most painful way to die. Oh,
Stabbing
Ugh.
oneself seems like an
Pretty bad
especially
anyway.
challenging thing to do, let alone with something that is ostensibly very blunt. That seems horrible. Like,
She like throws herself onto the point of the sword.
okay, so we're
I'm
talking
just
like
saying
what's
it's-
the fall is what gets her.
I
Jesus,
sort
very
of see it as
tragic.
like
Fucked up.
the Emperor's like on a seat or something, and the sword's into him. So she has to sort of figure out how to go around it and find where the point of the sword is, crawl under the statue, and then sort of like
And, like,
pull
roll it
herself up
over on
onto it.
herself. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
oh
I think
no.
I think it was more like the Emperor was doing like an Alas Poor Yorick, I knew him well standard pose.
Right.
And Fulgrim like drove the sword through Delafor and then through the Emperor's chest, essentially. So the sword is like horizontal in the room, essentially. But yeah, no,
Right, like he's like thrusting forward.
I do like the whole idea that like but who knows? It was also the Anathame, so it very well could have changed the blade direction. It was a chaos sword. So
this episode is one of the only. This is interesting because I know next to nothing about Fulgrim because I don't like him. I know nothing about. Actually, I don't think I know anything about anything we're talking about in this one, which is actually really rare for me. This is a whole section on this episode of 40K I know absolutely nothing about. And so I'm just sitting here imagining things that are probably seems strange to those of you that have read it or all. But if there are like listeners out there or viewers who are like me who have no clue about what's going on in this segment. I'm experiencing your point of view for one of the rarer times.
Yeah, no, Chac, I'm like right there with you because like similar to like I'm the kind of person who like I avoided reading about this kind of stuff, especially when I was being told, hey, they're doing some stuff from the point of view of chaos and this sort of stuff. I was like, I'm not interested. Like, what is going through the head of a corn berserker? Like it's going to be about one note. It just blood. Like I'm good. I don't have to read that. But as it turns out, the books have a lot more nuance. And the nuance that they have is horrible, awful, tragic, terrible stuff.
I specifically have not read any Primarch books as a choice.
They're all decent. The Primarch books are actually pretty decent.
But I don't care. That's the problem.
Yeah. So one of the rare cases, Emmy made a joke about this in our Patreon exclusive episode, which you can see if you go and go and join our Patreon. One of the rare times where Emmy caught me is I did not know which sword it was, and she went. She has read the book a lot more recently than I have, and she was like, "Oh, it's the Anathame," and I was like, "It can't be the Anathame because the Anathame isn't in Fulgrim's possession yet." And we kind of went a little bit back and forth on it, and then I was like, "Oh shit, she's totally right." So we'll actually talk about this a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But yeah, so all of this stuff is happening after Horus falls, but before Ishtvan 3. So Horus is corrupted, but nobody knows yet.
Yeah. So
he's
Horus
like
isn't
on
Horus
his
anymore.
way.
Oh, yeah. This is essentially almost everything we're talking about in this episode takes place in like
literally this is
8
like
months.
The difference between the notification, like your dasher is at the restaurant waiting for your order. Your dasher has picked up your order.
Yes.
And it's like Horus in his little like dasher car on his way, and he has to like drop off food for a couple of other people because you didn't tip him enough. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's like an 8-month period. And so much of the stuff that we talk about, even when we're covering the heresy, we're talking about conflicts that last like 2 to 3 years. And all of this shit is happening in like 6 months. The wheels, I mean, because these are squishy humans. Like legitimately, these are blood bags to everybody else.
Pre-corpses, as Nurgle would call them. Yeah.
So Bekwa Kinska was Terra's greatest composer, and you can tell because the second half of her last name is Ska, and obviously Ska is the okay. That's it. That's my Ska joke for the
day. Yeah.
So she accompanied the 28th Expeditionary Fleet at the request of Primarch Fulgrim. As we covered in last episode, Fulgrim wanted his Astartes warriors and Imperial Army contingents to be exposed to high culture. It was very important for him. Music, classical music, being a big portion of that. Kinska was extremely self-centered and hedonistic and enjoyed a variety of sensual perversions, even before she had been corrupted by Slaanesh. This was somebody who was already into doing the naughty. Her natural predilections later made her a very willing and very quick convert to the Prince of Chaos. It did not take her a long time. She was known for her blue hair and other cosmetic choices.
I bet she has pronouns in her bio.
We have a picture of her pulled up right now. She's a little booby, little boob-bastic, as you might say, and that's kind of how she's described. She was very sculpted. She was very pretty. Everything was done to be like the drop dead, not drop dead gorgeous. She wanted to be the thing that all men and women desired. That was like her goal. Bekwa sought to seduce the sculptor Austin Delafour, as we keep coming back to. Still, when he rejected her because of his love for the painter Serena de Angelis, she spitefully intervened with the Emperor's children to prevent Delafour from visiting the recently conquered Xenos world of Larian. Ironically, while this malicious act would actually spare Delafour, Kinska was exposed to the chaotic energies of Slaanesh herself. She essentially wasn't supposed to go because there was no reason for a composer to go because of the way that a composer works. She took his spot because she was being a petty bitch, and then gets exposed to chaos instead of him. Yeah. She got what she deserved. She was really ready for it, but whatever. The corruption of the Prince of Pleasure inspired her to create what she believed to be her greatest work, a symphony that she called the Margavella, the Maravigila.
Maravilia.
Thank you. The symphony was a discordant acoustic work of chaotic sorcery that opened a portal to the warp when performed for the corrupted members of the 28th Expeditionary Fleet. This allowed Slaneshi's lesser demons, demonettes, to possess several singers and other musicians. At the same time, it inspired a scene of mass slaughter by the corrupted Emperor's children Astartes throughout the Remembrancers area of Fulgrim's ship. So this entire area that had been kind of given over into this like bohemian like co-opt space, I guess is the only way to really say it. Fulgrim had essentially given over several great halls to just the Remembrancers to do their things, and the Emperor's children just go nuts and murder everything. Kinska herself was ultimately slain by a demonette who had possessed the body of her lead singer during the performance of the Maravigila.
I think you would say like
Maravilia. That makes more
Viglia,
sense. You wouldn't
yeah.
pronounce the G. The Maravilia. This is also, and we'll get to it later, but this is also the root of what would get to eventually becoming the Noise Marines.
Absolutely. And like, I totally understand youth pastor Dan's stance in the Vault youth group for cool teens that love God. I understand why he told us to really listen to, or, really think about what we're listening to, not to let the devil in and listen to that devil music. Instead, it was
that
all
Slanesh music.
yeah. Instead, it was all Skillet, Reliant K, and Thousand Foot Crutch. So,
Oh my God, Skillet, dude.
Skillet,
Wow.
yeah, good stuff. Nothing like Christian butt rock from the 2000s.
Oh my God, butt rock. Yeah.
Monster by Skillet, what a banger. Anyways,
you're bringing me back to some memory.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're good or bad, but you're bringing me back to some memory.
Yeah. Did you know that they wrote that song Monster about I think it was the 2000 and what was it? 2004, that Hulk movie?
Really? I thought that song came out before for some reason.
One.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, Madonna's Like a Prayer is all about worshiping Jesus, too.
Yeah, you should totally listen to it.
It is.
No.
It's very much like the communion. My understanding is.
Yeah. Taking it orally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Into the body and whatnot.
So they actually did. There was a movie that came out. I cannot remember which one, but it has a vaguely like Catholicism plus vibe to it. And they optioned Madonna to use the song. And it was very obvious to like Madonna's manager at the time that no one had listened to it. So they were like, the manager at the time was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. and then just waited next to the phone to cackle maniacally, apparently.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how I feel it went down.
Yeah, but they took their money. Yeah.
Anyways, we will get deeper into the devil music story when we discuss the Marines that would eventually become the Noise Marines.
Oh, yeah.
And
also known as
the
Kiss Army.
The Kiss
Yes, the Kiss Army. And
I was a member.
And to keep it all in the timeline as well, we are still at this point. Remember, Horus is door dashing. He has picked the food up from the location, but he has a couple of other stops he has to get to before you get your pad thai. So that's where we are. We are still on the pre-Istvan 3. You still don't have your pot stickers timeline.
Your pot stickers are 35 minutes away from Istvan 3.
Exactly. Yes. Callista Eris was a historiographer, which is 40K's fancy word for a historian, and a powerful psyker. This gave her the ability to read the memories and emotions associated with any object and the gifts of powerful precognitive visions. Cool. She was assigned to record the deeds of the Thousand Sons Legion on their homeworld of Prospero. She would ultimately be consumed and torn apart by the power of the warp when the Thousand Sons used her abilities to foresee the coming assault on Prospero by the Space Wolves Legion and Leman Russ. We covered these events in a previous episode, and we are getting much deeper into the long and bitter rivalry between both of these legions and their Primarchs.
She became a component in a spell. just gotta be one of the worst ways to die. Especially with everything we know about the warp.
Yeah, it's not great.
I'm so glad you can see the future. We're going to use your brain now. What do you mean use my brain? Well, we're going to need to take it out of your skull, but we're not going to do it by removing it from your skull. We're going to do it by turning you inside out. Get ready to open your third eye. Man, the Thousand Suns. And they're your favorite, aren't they?
They sure are. Like, honestly, the being turned inside out for your brain, like, I have a pap smear coming up, and like this sort of shit is all I think about when I have to schedule these types of things. Like, please just let this be a normal doctor visit. Please do not turn me, corrupt my psychic powers and turn me into some horrible thing from the warp. Like,
are you worried that you have untapped psychic powers that are going to come out in a doctor's appointment?
Yeah, with this state of healthcare.
Drew has his hand raised. I don't know what that means.
I'm concerned.
You're concerned. You're concerned her psychic powers are going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I swear to God, the last time I got blood drawn, I was seeing stars, and I'm pretty sure I was about to have a psychic break.
Yeah, I didn't want to get. I don't want to get absolutely banished to the warp or whatever. I'm not about that.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Ma'avasta Callimachus, who is known as the Scribe of Magnus, and personally served the Thousand Suns Legion's Primarch Magnus the Red during the Great Crusade. He authored the esoteric work known as the Book of Magnus, the Crimson King's greatest tome of sorcery and mystic items. Mystic rites, not items, mystic rites. He was present at the events of such historical significance as the Council of Nicaea, where the Emperor forbade Magnus and his legion the use of their psychic abilities. This event also led to the dissolution of the Librarius Corps of every other legion. So this dude saw a lot of shit. When Magnus broke this sacred edict by sending the telepathic warning using a sorcerer's ritual to the Imperial Palace on Terra, the Space Wolves Legion was charged with bringing the Crimson King to Terra in chains to face the judgment of the Emperor himself. In our Prospero episode, we actually covered the fact that the Emperor's orders were arrest that man and bring him here. Horus intercepted it and said, punish him. Horus is the reason that Prospero burned.
Yeah,
what a dick.
What a ding dong.
As the Wolves of Fenris made their way in system towards the Thousand Suns homeworld of Prospero, several civilian starships were in the process of fleeing the planet and the system in considerable numbers. Some of these vessels were overtaken and boarded, and their crews and passengers became captives to be interrogated by the Space Wolves rune priests, who strived to build themselves a full picture of their oncoming target. They didn't want to walk in blind. They wanted to know what they were getting into.
Their rune priests, by the way, were not librarians or psychers.
They're totally not psychers. It's completely different. It's completely different. It's just like they're saints, not witches, and the Sisters of Battle. It's completely different. 100% different.
They use runes, guys, in the name.
Totally different.
They have to mine the runite themselves.
The Storm Seers from the White Scars also don't use the power of the warp. They just read the winds of magic. It's completely different.
Very different. Yeah. Okay.
Callimachus was taken on one of these ships, the Cypra Celia, which carried a number of Imperial remembrancers who had been posted to Prospero to observe the Legion. Somehow, he still managed to escape the rune priests, and was eventually released from the Space Wolves' custody. After the Space Wolves destroyed Prospero, none thought about this missing remembrancer. Only after casting the rubric of Ahriman and his exile by Magnus did the Thousand Suns Chaos Sorcerer Ahriman recall the mystic writings of Callimachus. He eventually would track down the long-dead remembrancer's works on the world of Apollonia. Thank you. Nearly a millennia and a half later, a fanatical priesthood had sprung up around these writings and fiercely guarded them within the citadel that housed the library of similar works called the Athenaeum.
Yeah.
of Callimachus. Though the vault was lined with protective runes and the books sat amidst smoldering sorcerous flames, they proved to be little deterrent to Ahriman and his 1,000 sons who would claim the books. After a bitter month-long siege, Ahriman emerged triumphant and plundered the writings of Callimachus, eventually burning the library to ashes, so only he alone would hold the forbidden secrets that Callimachus had once written. Everything about the two people we read is very 1,000 Sons. Like the remembrancers that went to the 1,000 Sons were 1,000 Sons remembrancers for a reason.
I'm flabbergasted that clearly in the future there's some kind of like cured meat that has that's named for a planet, because Apollonia is definitely some kind of tube sausage thing, you know. You get a shaved thin Apollonia on some nice bread, you know, some lettuce. Ahriman loved that shit, you know. I don't know. The names always. The names are always amazing.
It's on an Italian everything meat pizza somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and everything pizza in Warhammer 40,000 way different than what it is now. Like, let me tell you, they have way more access to everything. So, yeah.
There's guardsmen on there. I got you. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Sounded really Greek to me, but that's
yeah.
Really Greek to you.
Well, yeah, it's Apollo. Apollonian is from Apollo.
But the Italians stole everything from the Greeks.
That's
I thought, Chac, your joke worked on 2 levels, and one of the levels I don't even think you realized.
No, I knew exactly what I was saying.
Ignaz Karski was a poet. I'm not Karski. Carcassy?
Ignis Carcassy. Yeah.
Ignis
Carcassy sounds like a communist cartoon character from like the time of Stalin. And it'd be like vaguely mouse-shaped or cat-shaped, throwing rocks at imperialists.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's in like some like
black and white.
Defined his character.
Yeah. He's for sure in some like East of the Iron Curtain, like 1950s propaganda piece.
100%. Not necessarily communist, but definitely like Stalinist.
So let me introduce his lore, and then I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. First, Drew, go ahead.
Before you do, just consider instead Ignace Carcassy.
Ignace? Maybe.
Ignace Carcassy.
The thing that throws me off is that they always pronounce it, they, being GW, always pronounces his name Ignis.
Well, yeah, that's like
but
in Michigan here.
Ignis, Carcassy. I like that.
We have a city up north. It's called St. Ignis, and that's how they pronounce it.
And that's how it's spelled?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Because
it's the bridge between the lower peninsula and the upper peninsula of Michigan, and it's called St. Ignis. Yeah.
We don't make fun of Michael Jackson and much on this podcast, but you Ignis.
Was that Michael Jackson or was that
that was Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson.
I think it was supposed to be
Mike Tyson. You Ignis? I thought that was Michael Jackson.
Yeah. No, I think it was Mike Tyson.
So Ignis Carcassy was a poet attached to the Luna Wolves in the Legion's 63rd Expeditionary Fleet during the Great Crusade. He was not the most upstanding of men, and he was known for his abrasive nature and love for drink. Still, his poetry stood out for always telling the truth as Carcassy saw it, a trait that earned him the respect and protection of Luna Wolves Legion captain Garviel Loken. Due to his outspoken nature, he was almost shipped back to Terra, but was spared after Loken intervened on his behalf and became his sponsor. So the event in question, Ignis goes down to the planet, the planet where the famous line, "I was there the day Horus slew the emperor." It's the opening line of the book. It's the very first book in the Horus heresy. And essentially, it's true. Horus teleports into the throne room of a false emperor and kills him. And that's like the whole conceit of the story. But Ignis goes down to the planet and he's walking around in the rubble left over by the Astartes and by the Imperial troops. And he essentially is incredibly disenfranchised by the entire thing. He's essentially throwing rocks at imperialists, as you just said, Chac. He He thinks it's stupid. He thinks that the Imperium is being heavy-handed. He thinks that all of the destruction is essentially a waste of time. And what he ends up doing is he ends up finding himself in a bar in the ruined leftovers of the city that is essentially entirely populated by people who are upset that the Imperium has freed their world,
Yeah.
except for a table of guardsmen. And those table of guardsmen get sick of and fed up of his shit, and they beat him like near to death and then arrest him. And the reason that they stop beating him and arrest him is because the bar patrons actually go, wait a minute, there's something wrong going here. So they start to intervene on this like idiot, flamboyant idiot who doesn't understand their culture, who's like protecting, who's adopting, who's culturally appropriating their stance. Like they resent him for that at the beginning of this entire episode. And by the end, they kind of try to come to his rescue because he's being beaten. And then those Imperial Army officers take him back and he gets in a lot of trouble and he almost gets kicked out. And Loken goes like, no, he's telling the truth. He's telling the horror of what we're doing. And that's the reason they're here. Anyway, it's just really, it's really interesting that by his name, you like came up with this kid because like that's kind of how he is.
Mhm.
Also, I will say this, just quick side note.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Ryan, you are right. It's Michael Jackson that you're thinking of. It's the Michael Jackson, like the in
When he was
the
being
South,
accused, right?
in
Yeah.
the South Park.
Yeah.
Specifically the episode.
ignorant.
Yeah, because that's how he confronts. There's like a 60 Minutes interview or something like that.
Yes.
Where he says something like that, and then they just kept repeating that in that South Park episode. Anyway,
Yes.
carry on.
Yeah. It had to do with dangling blanket out of the anyway. It was the captain's personal belief that the expeditionary fleet needed an individual like Carcassy, for he always told the truth no matter how ugly it was. After he penned his inflammatory, "The truth is all we have," a rift of animosity would separate him from the newly named Sons of Horus. This controversial work condemned the Mournival, including Loken, following their reckless return of the dying Primarch Horus to his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. This was right after Horus had been mortally wounded by the mysterious Anatheme sword wielded by the corrupted Eugene Temba on the Nurgle corrupted moon of Davin.
Okay, so this is where I'm like, okay, Fulgrim has 3 swords. So the Anatheme, where does he get the Anatheme again?
So
This is not the
Arab-
Blade of Lair.
no.
No.
So the Blade of Lair and the Anatheme are 2 different swords. And then he has the Firebrand, which is the sword
Yep.
that was made for him by
Ferrus
Ferrus
Manus.
Manus.
Mhm.
So Fulgrim, so Erebus steals the Anatheme from the Initrex. The Initrex are a human empire, a human Xenos empire that Horus and the Sons of Horus, because this is like right after he changes their name to the Sons of Horus,
Right.
go to liberate. And at first, Horus is basically like, there's no reason to fight these people. They've got some backwards ideas, but their technology is really good. There's no reason to fight them. The major difference between the Initrex and the Imperium of Man is that the Initrex know, categorize, and acknowledge the existence of chaos and know that it needs to be separated and protected against. So they've named it. And this is before anybody in the Imperium has really outwardly named chaos. Erebus knows that these are the old gods because Erebus and Logar and Corferon and the word bearers at this point have been following the ruinous powers for like 50 years. Well before Horus falls, well before the end of the Great Crusade, all of this. So Erebus breaks in to the Initrex Hall of Weapons, which is a place where a bunch of like chaos tainted weapons are stored, and steals the Anatheme blade. Because Erebus is a space marine, it essentially informs the Initrex, enough of Erebus's glimpse that the Initrex realize that the space marines, the Sons of Horus, who they are sponsoring on their planet, are attacking them. And then the Initrex attack the Sons of Horus. The Sons of Horus fight back. The Initrex empire essentially dies in a night because they try to take on the Sons of Horus. Like Horus kills somebody with a fucking butter knife, like in this story, essentially. Like kills people. I shouldn't say person. Kills people with a butter knife in this story. So Erebus gets away with the Anatheme. Erebus goes to the moon of Davin and talks to the warrior lodges of the Davenite people, the Serpent Lodge specifically, about what he plans to do. And then he gives the anatheme to Eugene Temba, who is the system governor Horus left in charge of Davin after the compliance of Davin, like 10 years before. Eugene Temba then, holding the weapon, slowly becomes corrupted by Nurgle, and the entire moon, or in the entire complex around his crashed starship, which is where he takes up residence after he falls, becomes tainted with Nurgle. Then Eugene Temba and Horus face each other in a one-on-one fight in this crashed starship. And it's at that point that Horus faces a demon prince of Nurgle, who has possessed Eugene Temba. And Eugene Temba stabs Horus with the anatheme. At that point, Loken picks up the anatheme as the Mournival picks up Horus. And then the massacre happens that Ignis writes about that causes the shit that we're talking about right now. When they get into the Apothecarion on the Vengeful Spirit, Fabius Bile is there. Fabulous Bill is there. And it's Fabius who works along with the Apothecarian, the apothecaries of the Sons of Horus to attempt to save Horus's life. However, Fabi is there as an inside man because he knows what Erebus is trying to do. So Fabi then takes the anatheme with him and leaves. Erebus tells Fabi to give the anatheme to Fulgrim because Erebus at this point doesn't know about the Lair sword yet. And that's how essentially Fulgrim ends up with 3 weapons. And that kind of, I mean, if you're familiar at all with Fulgrim's like lore and weapons in 30K, he has 3 swords. He has 3 weapons, 3 swords he can pull from. In this case, I think the spear that he carries is the Lair sword, because the Lair sword is not bound to a single shape. And one of Fulgrim's powers through the Lair sword, as he grows into a demon Primarch, is essentially any weapon he has ever fought with, he can magically call its shape into his hand, which to me is a really, really cool and unique Fulgrim power. But yeah, so that's how Fulgrim in the stuff we just covered ends up with the anatheme. But all of this again happens in like the space of like 4 to 6 months. So it's like bing, bang, boom, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question.
It wasn't a
for our
15-second
listeners out
answer,
there,
sorry.
We have covered this in more detail in one of the earlier episodes.
Yes.
So you could go back and listen to the beginning of the heresy.
Yeah, we actually cover we cover the entire Eugene Temba storyline quite a bit earlier in this series. So.
Fulgrim needs a 40-ounce Stanley cup, and I feel like with about 40 ounces of water, this thing is lethal. Like,
I mean, any weapon he's ever fought with, so he can call a Stanley Cup into his hand.
Mm-hmm. I got Drew on the Stanley Cup thing too. Fantastic. If you have a weapon on hand whenever you need it, self-defense.
There you go.
Good cup.
Good cup.
Good cup.
A large civilian crowd had gathered aboard the flagship to catch a glimpse of the fallen War Master when he was brought aboard. The Mournival, in their haste and desperation to save their Primarch, accidentally caused the trampling death of 27 civilians on their way to the ship's Apothecarion. Due to the horrific nature of this incident, Carcassy began to print newsletters warning of the hypocrisy of the Legionnaires' actions. The poet would ultimately meet his fate at the hands of Magard, the mute, gene-enhanced bodyguard of Petronella Vivar, Horus's personal remembrancer, who was sent to silence him by the increasingly paranoid Horus. Magard, who Horus had made a new civilian enforcer, went to Carcassy under the guise of handing him a note from the Primarch. This ended up being a forged suicide note, and shortly after reading it, Carcassy was shot in the head with a bolt pistol, which Magard then planted in the dead man's grip. I've watched enough true crime to know that I could probably figure this one out, that it wasn't a suicide. Again, all of this is still taking place. Horus is approaching your home with the pot stickers. He's not there yet.
not quite there yet.
He's not quite at Isfahan 3, but we're so hungry, and I could really go for some gyoza.
So Euphrates Keeler was originally an imagist during the final days of the Great Crusade aboard the War Master's Horus's flagship Vengeful Spirit. Her experiences during these later days transformed her from a normal young woman with no special abilities to the devoted believer in the divinity of the Emperor of Mankind, a faith so deep that it would prove to be a supernatural bane to demons and other servants of chaos. After the Horus heresy began, Keeler would be recognized by others who shared her beliefs as a living saint and the prophet of the emperor. This reputation would see her later canonized as one of the first saints of the Imperium cult and the ecclesiarchy after the establishment of the Imperial State Church in the mid-32nd millennium. But this is just a super brief Cliff Notes, and her story is much, much deeper and more profound. Keeler and the iterator Kirill Cinderman will be the subjects of our next Heroes of 40K segment coming up.
What a trajectory, you know?
Yeah.
This lady went from like a government-sponsored space journalist to like the leader of like the most powerful religious organization in all of like human history.
And single-handedly, Euphrates Keeler and Cinderman make up two of the four pillars of the Imperium in the 42nd millennium. Like, not a lot of people probably know who they are, but they are integral to the way that the 42nd millennium works in so many ways. And that's one of the reasons that we're going to take a little bit more time. The other reason we're going to take a little bit more time is the amount of lore on both of them is like 4 episodes deep, but we're not going to do 4 episodes on them. We're going to combine them. We're streamlining it. We've already written quite a bit of the episode. We've streamlined it into one episode to give you guys kind of the important takeaways. Because as we get into the Solar War and as we get into the Siege of Terra, these people are going to come up again and again and again. And if you don't know who they are before we get there, taking a break to like half episode explain who they are just skips a lot of foundational bits and bobs. Mercedes Olaton was the documentarist or journalist who served as the personal remembrancer for Captain Garviel Loken of the Luna Wolves. She was close friends with the poet Ignace Carcasse and the imagist Euphrates Keeler. However, Ignace and Mercedes would remain far more skeptical of the doctrines of the Laetitio Divinitas, unlike Keeler, who would start down the path to becoming the future saint of the imperial cult. Mercedes managed to escape the slaughter of the remembrancers ordered by Horus, with Keeler and the iterator Kirill Cinderman aided by Captain Ikaton Cruz. All 3 made it aboard the frigate Eisenstein, which escaped the slaughter of Ishtvan III before making its way to Terra to warn the Emperor of Horus's betrayal. The pot stickers are at your house. They're now here, but you guys will probably... Ikaton Cruz has come up a couple of times. This isn't the first time we've mentioned him. When they arrived at Terra, Mercedes was taken by the Imperial authorities and imprisoned in an orbital prison around the moon of Titan. Her memory coils were removed and she would remain imprisoned until the end of the heresy. She was briefly visited by Gavriel Loken, by that time a knight errant of Malcador the Sigillite, and he would become enraged at how she had been treated. He almost killed his fellow knight errant Ikaton Cruz, who had failed to tell Loken about the imprisonment, largely on the orders of the Imperial Fist Primarch Rogel Dorn. Dorn did not want Mercedes anywhere in the open because Dorn didn't want what she knew of the heresy to get out. Now, in a weird twist, just like we covered in our trivia, 40K trivia, there are very few characters who are left completely unknown. Mercedes is one of them. Just like Jakatai Khan, no one knows what happened to Mercedes following the Horus heresy. She very well could still be in a cell controlled by the Grey Knights on or orbiting Titan, for all we know.
Well, only if she's a perpetual.
Well, or they have her in stasis or something else. I mean, there's
she
so
could
many.
Be
there's
like
so
in
many ways they can.
One of Trazen's little balls.
Yeah. She definitely. I mean, anything that's the beauty about Trazen's balls.
he can have infinite things in his balls.
But honestly, she's a human, so she's probably dead.
She's probably dead.
Yeah.
Her memory coils probably are still around somewhere, though.
Petronella Vivar was another documentarist / journalist. She was an arrogant scion of a Terran noble family and sought to become the War Master Horus's personal remembrancer. The Vivar family was well known on Terra as the documentarist who had chronicled the Unification Wars and the beginning of the Emperor's rule in the 29th millennium. They had also been known for recording the deeds of the early days of the Great Crusade when the Emperor began to rediscover all his sons, the Lost Primarchs. She was later killed by Horus himself after his corruption in her luxurious quarters aboard the Vengeful Spirit because she knew too much, had to protect the secrets that he had revealed to her. She's a really interesting character in the False
Yeah.
Gods novel. Like, she's so prissy and perfect. And Horus is like, I don't know about this. I don't know about, war isn't for nice young ladies like you. And then she was like, I don't know, my dad. And then he's like, okay, fine.
And she also has this like absolutely roided up, insane bodyguard, Magard, who we talked about.
Oh, Magard, he's
Yes.
great.
And he can't talk, and he resents her existence, and that's how Horus flips him. And he essentially becomes Horus's first like active civilian enforcer. He becomes the first of like, if you would say like Horus's cult, even though Magard never really fills a cultist role. But yeah, he's very classic like mafioso enforcer is the way that Magard is written. And now we're getting into the real tragic stuff. Just hold on to your butts. Solomon Voss was the very finest wordsmith. This is the 40K word for authors of his age. Known for such vaunted works as The Edge of Illumination, as well as having written about and witnessed the first conquests of the Great Crusade. He was tolerated amongst the elite of the Imperium for his ability to turn deeds into words that could inflame the passions of men and women. Before the triumph of Olenor, Solomon Voss was one of many imperial intellectuals who had struck upon the idea of creating a unique order composed of 1,000 artists that would be sent out with the expeditionary fleets to reflect the truth of the Great Crusade. His influence was instrumental in petitioning the emperor to create this order of artists who would witness, record, and reflect the light of the imperial truth spread by the Great Crusade, so that an accurate record of the Imperium's founding would always be available for later generations. The Council of Terra took this idea under consideration and later ratified the creation of the Order of Remembrancers. Initially, Voss was part of the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet, one of the largest and most powerful of the Great Crusade. The 63rd was the personal fleet of Horus, as we've talked about, but after Olenor and the Emperor's return to Terra, when Horus was named War Master, basically Voss would leave and transfer from the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet to the 817th Expeditionary Fleet. Now, two things to bring up here. First off, remembrancers were a thing that existed before the Great Crusade. They existed in the Unification Wars. It's essentially like the word for news media. The Order of Remembrancers, capital R, capital O, capital R, was created for the Great Crusade, but it was just a drawing together of people in an intellectual space that already existed. The second thing to bring up here is we know nothing about the 817th Expeditionary Fleet except that Voss moved there and then moved back. That's it. That's all we know. We know nothing else about the 817th Expeditionary Fleet. I feel like Chac, this is one of those things that they're going to play with at some point as they continue to develop the Imperialis rules and everything. I feel like we're going to hear more, but yeah.
Askarid Shaw was a remembrancer renowned for her skills as an illuminator and calligraphist. She often used those skills to aid her long-term collaborator and partner, the author or wordsmith Solomon Voss, lettering his literary work into scrolls and tomes that match the beauty of his words. She would also have a direct hand in creating the remembrancers when she illuminated manuscripts written by Voss, who then presented them to the emperor himself in Zuritz. These manuscripts were considered so beautiful and true that legends suggest the Council of Terra ratified the creation of the Order of Remembrancers upon seeing them. Askarid was with Voss and the 817th on the planet Hattusa when Horus began his rebellion against the Emperor. As the fleet tried to comprehend what had happened, the Edict of Dissolution was passed by the Council of Terra. Their order now dissolved, the remembrancers were no longer allowed to record the events of the crusade. Voss could not grasp Horus's betrayal and insisted that he needed to see Istvan V himself to put to words the scope of the War Master's rebellion. Ascarid tried for days to discourage him from such a reckless trip, knowing that if Horus had actually betrayed the Imperium, Voss would be nothing but another insect under the War Master's boot. However, as it became obvious Voss could not be persuaded from this path, she reluctantly decided to go with him.
Voss felt that as a remembrancer, it was his duty to make sense of the great events for posterity. He knew that others would doubt that the brightest sun of the Imperium could be turned against it. If it was true that Horus had become the vilest of traitors, he wanted the truth explored. To this end, he used his influences and connections throughout the expeditionary fleets of both sides to travel back to Istvan V, recruiting a group of former remembrancers to join them so the truth could be shouted from the works of as many mouths and witnesses as possible. When they reached Istvan V, the battle had been long over, and their ships were surrounded by the debris of destroyed warships. As they made their way towards the planet, though, they were stopped by the sons of Horus and boarded and captured by Astartes of the Legion. Horus's space marines then demanded that the group of 20 or so remembrancers come with them. When one of the former remembrancers of their group asked why, her arms were torn from her body and she was left to bleed to death on the deck. Seeing they had no choice, the other 19 were like, yep, okay, cool, we're going. And they found that they were being grouped with all of the other captured remembrancers from the traitor legion's fleets. So all of the remembrancers that were in any of the fleets anywhere on Istvan V were all being herded into one space.
That can't be good.
They were all brought before the War Master aboard his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. Astrid interwove her fingers with Voss's hands as Horus gazed over the frightened group. Finally, the War Master uttered, while pointing at Voss, all but that one. And the guns of the Justinian Terminators tore them to pieces. Voss alone survived this execution and would go on to act as the personal remembrancer of Horus, the sole witness to every dark and bloody moment and every word of hate that would be spewed by the arch traitor. The only reason he spared Voss is because at that point, he was so far gone past killing Vivar that he was like back. He went so heretical, he was back. He was like, I need somebody to document everything I'm doing.
Hey guys, what the hell?
Oh yeah,
fuck,
Right.
chick is wild.
right?
Dude, we arms ripped off. Is this Goro in Mortal Kombat? Holy
Look,
shit!
Yeah.
And
Horus, quite literally, like mentally, I think the spaceship on the moon of Davin, he's like fundamentally changed
Oh, yeah,
at this
yeah.
point.
Yeah.
He's not
Well,
Horus anymore.
They stripped
Mhm.
they stripped all of the things that made Horus not a bloodthirsty tyrant and tactician out of Horus. When they resurrected him, when the Dark Powers resurrected him, they took all of his they took any good part of his personality out. They only left the bad. I just think the imagery of interweaving your fingers with your centuries old lover at this point. Like, I mean, Voss was around, Ascarid and Voss were around at the end of the Unification War. These are humans at the utmost level of strata who are hundreds of years old and have been in a relationship for hundreds of years. And like she knows what's coming. All she can do is she wants to die, holding the hand of the man she loves. And then he has to live with the fact that he was spared. He was the only one spared. And like, the Terminators saw that. That they were like, yep. That Horus was like, yep, tear that away from him. I need to break this man irrevocably because I need to bend him to what I want. And of course, if you want the darker psychological stuff, read the books. It's in there. And the stories get real because there's a lot of human characters in these stories. And it really becomes the focus. It really becomes the focus of what the humans are going through and how that changes the Imperium. And that's one of the really interesting things, cool things about the Remembrancers is that you're getting the incredibly real human story.
So, like, is the notion that that Voss is again Voss gets to be so old just because of like advances in medical technology during this time,
So
and just didn't die of being
yeah,
shot.
essentially. So
Yeah.
in at the height of the dark age of technology,
Hmm.
there was technology that essentially made most humans immortal, functionally immortal. You know, like you still die being shot or like thrown into space or like having
Right.
your head cut off or whatever, or like
So, like,
bouncing too close
unable
to
to
a
die
sun
of
of
aging,
aging,
essentially, as a
essentially.
consequence
Like,
of aging. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of medical concerns have been removed. By the end of the Unification Wars, a lot of that technology that was being jealously hoarded by like one guy or the other had all been brought together. So, like, to be completely like, to break it down to its like most basic, say one techno barbarian had the cure for cancer, one techno barbarian had the cure for like like the way to stop aging, and then another techno barbarian had like the cure for aging itself. So as soon as the emperor retook everything, he had all the components back together, and then the emperor, in the small period of reformation before the Great Crusade started, started to heal the earth. The ocean started to return, plant life started to come back. He had started to like bring animals back that had been extinct for tens of thousands of years at that point, and he brought all this technology back. So all of these artists and remembrancers, which is kind of the term that 40K uses, that had been alive at the end of the Unification Wars and that had been like these great authors and these chroniclers and all of these people that were essentially like the noble strata, are benefiting from all of this returning technology. Not only that, but as the emperor went out during the Great Crusade and started to find night worlds and titan worlds and forge worlds, more technology and medical stuff is coming back. So yeah, people, essentially all of these remembrancers, Ignis, Mercedes, I take that back. Mercedes is not. Ignis, Keeler are very young. They're both like in their 20s. Mercedes, it has a lot of the trappings of somebody who's been through several rejuvenant treatments already. Um, Bequa had a lot of like, her body had been like cosmetically formed and cosmetically perfected. So like think of like a 30-year-old, like I know, I probably porn star, like perfected porn star, but with much more technology or whatever you want to say. And then like all of these characters kind of
Tech-
range
no,
between
no, 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 no.
wet behind the
What,
ears to like hundreds of years old, but still human. You know what I mean?
what technology? Do porn stars, cybernetic implants? What are you inferring here?
Well, so Bequa had remade her body to be like the
Like the perfect body?
she hadn't remade her body to be like timelessly beautiful. She had
Hmm.
remade her body to make people have boners on seeing her. Like
I see.
her predilections were not I want to be pretty and young forever. Her predilections were I want to make everybody hot. But
Okay.
anyway, so she's kind of a weird one. But they had all kind of undergone, with the exception of Ignis and Keeler and one or two of the others, they had all undergone quite a lot of work to be essentially young forever. And
Hmm.
Solomon, Voss, and Askrid are like the eldest of them
Wow.
because
Okay.
they had been involved in like it happening. Like Solomon wrote some of the stuff during the end of the unification, just like Vivar's parents had written some of the stuff at the end of the Unification Wars. Voss
So
had
so
written some of the stuff at the end of the Unification Wars.
so by now Voss is she could be like a great grandmother or something, right?
Yeah, Solomon Voss would be like 350 years old, and Askrid would be like 350 years old at this point. They're both very
So
old.
yeah,
But again,
right.
like that just points to the tragedy of like they've been in love this entire time.
This is like a
Like
very special website though. Like, like there's like GILF and then there's whatever this is. Like a good
we,
GILF,
we
like great
yeah, right,
GILF.
right,
I
right.
don't know. How does that work?
We've talked
Yeah.
about rejuvenant stuff before. Rejuvenant people kind of have that like they look like they're between 30 and 45, but kind of like unnaturally like
Mhm.
waxy.
Sort of
Well,
ageless, yeah.
and that's in the 42nd millennia. And remember, by the 42nd millennia, there's been 10,000 years of like medical knowledge loss.
Stagnation or retrogradation.
So eventually, Horus would turn Voss loose, and he would eventually be captured by the Imperial authorities. Horus wanted this to happen because he wanted the Imperium to know that the Imperial truth was dead. Voss was brought to a nameless fortress hidden from the sun on the dark side of Saturn's moon of Titan, second time Titans come up, and placed within one of the multitude of anonymous cells, newly constructed to serve as a place for interrogation for turncoats and the execution of arch traitors. He was questioned by none other than the Imperial Fist's Primarch Rogel Dorn, with the former Luna Wolves Ikaton Cruz acting on behalf of Malcador the Sigillite as silent witness and executioner. The truth learned by Voss and revealed to Dorn was that the Imperium would never regain its former glory, as there was no longer any trust left within it. Voss argued that the ideals of truth, reason, and illumination were dead. If the Imperium truly had nothing to fear from Horus and the traitors' cause, his final work on what he had witnessed amongst the traitors should be revealed to all within in the Imperium's realm. So Voss was basically like, it's over, you lost, they're technically on your side, just hear Horus's truth. Because this is how broken the man is at this point. As he revealed the rift that was emerging within the Imperium, the Primarch became enraged and left the chamber to clad himself in his power armor. Upon returning to the cell, Cruz pulled his large power sword from its scabbard and handed it to Dorn, who struck down and executed the Remembrancer himself. All of Voss's work would then be burned by the Imperial decree, and he was posthumously declared a traitor to the Imperium. So, like, even a secondary or tertiary fucking tragic end to this man's life.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And just like we kind of mentioned, this is just sort of a glimpse into the Remembrancers, even the people that we just covered and their order. If you want the full story, I would say probably the first 7 or 8 books in the Horus Heresy very, very heavily deal with the Remembrancers. Now, next week, we will be covering Euphrates Keeler and the iterator Carol Cinderman in more detail in our first Heroes of 40K segment that we've done in about a year. But don't worry, we all talked and we're bringing this segment back onto our full roadmap. And if you want to vote on who we cover next, head on over to Patreon. That's it. I got my 2 in. You didn't get your Naruto episode reference in, Emmy.
The show's for kids. It doesn't get that fucking dark. Holy shit.
Okay, so you know that Naruto, the anime character, and Naruto Maki, the fish cake, are both named after the whirlpools in the Naruto Strait.
Which makes a ton of sense.
I did not know that. That's why I had to say wow.
Which makes a ton of sense.
And the creator of
because,
Naruto, I think, is very humorous that people, because Naruto Maki are fish rolls that are sliced and usually put on ramen, and Naruto, the character, always eats ramen with fish cakes in it. And also, they have the little whirlpool swirl on the fish cakes, and he's got the whirlpool on his headband. People think that he's named after the fish cake. But he's not. He's named after the whirlpools in the strait.
And his clan, because they go into this, his ninja village, the village hidden in the eddies, the village hidden in the whirlpools, kind of gets merged into the Leaf Village at some point. And so his clan has a little whirlpool as kind of like their family crest.
I still like thinking that he's named after the fish cakes.
Fish cake boy. I like it. So if you guys want to get into contact with us about this episode or the show itself, you can do that by reaching out through email at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com.
You can join our growing community on Discord and become part of the conversation about existing lore, world building, gaming, and much more. Find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, or check out our website at underthehiveofmadness.com. Check out our link tree to find links to follow everyone in the cast progress on hobbies and their other projects. And we have a Redbubble now. Ryan's got our Nutty Jays sticker as well as our awesome Purity Seal sticker.
Warning,
that has
we say
swear
fuck a
words
lot.
on it. Yeah. And of course, if you have been following along a little bit with our sort of Hive sonas, I don't know. I am Emmy, the Scream Queen, and the lead vocalist of my fictitious band, Ghosts Don't Have Morals. And Ghosts Don't Have Morals has really dope merch, and the design is super cool, so you should go check it out.
No, I agree with all of those other things about the Redbubble store, but also help the podcast grow by liking and reviewing us wherever you get your podcast fix. Our home is on Spotify, but you can find us on Audible, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, and more. And as always, links and spellings can be found in the show notes.
Support us through Patreon at www.patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. Join a fantastic crew of hivers for access to extra content and a chance to snag some cool merch in our monthly giveaways. And by the way, if you go to the Redbubble store, don't be put off by the blank icon and that this is a not safe for work product. It's just a purity seal because we say fuck a lot.
Oi, I've rats and subcrawlers, looking for gear that screams louder than a plasma explosion in a narrow corridor? Come on down to Bulge's Sumprack City, the only place in the Underhive where the music's heavy, the deals are dirtier than ever, and the style's sharper than a Splatterox mohawk. From Death Synth to Sump Rock, from Jukepunk to Ganger Anthems, we've got the amps, the strings, and the attitude to blow out your eardrums and send the cog boys running for cover. Need a custom axe? We've got Sump-forged guitars made with real Underhive grit. Looking for threads? Check out our one-of-a-kind synth leather and Groxide jackets, boots, and spikes built tough enough to survive ice storms and mosh pits. Bulge's Sumprack City. If we're too loud, you're too soft.
Always raising our spiked fists in the air. We are the audio assault of truthiness on the Pirate Voxwave, 665.66 UHMA Chemrat Radio. The only station crazy enough to bring heat to this cold and cursed Underhive. Reminding all of you Chemrats, Hive Mice, and Sump Ghoulies to keep those dials fixed. Right here, same ratty frequency, for a dose of the same ratty-ass attitude.
And remember, kids, when you find yourself facing both a four-armed emperor and an Arbites, you don't have to outrun the four-armed emperor. All you have to do is outrun the Arbites or push him down and kick him in the nards.
It's an effective strategy.
Somewhere in
I
there.
respect it.
But
Yeah.
find some time to read a motherfucking book.
And brush your goddamn teeth.
Drink some water and don't loot the corpses.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Bye.